Jagmeet Singh, are you going to call an election? Are you going to call an election, Mr. Singh? Are you going to vote no confidence? Canadians want an election!
No. Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Aaron here, Canadian Looney. So today was the first day that Parliament was sitting again, a brand new session, and I've been excited about that. I think a few other people were as well. The question period was very anticipated, a little anticlimactic right at the beginning, but in round number 2, it goes, yeah, it's pretty entertaining after that. So we're gonna just take a quick look at the couple of rounds, 6 rounds of question period. That's what we're gonna do here. Round number 1, PIERRE POILIEVRE versus Justin Trudeau. Let's take a peek. Justin Trudeau looks actually pretty good. Like, he looks swollen in most of his other videos. He looks okay in this, but PIERRE POILIEVRE, obviously has the upper hand. Let's take a peek.
Questions orales. Oral questions.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes up, costs up, crime's up, time's up. And now he wants a 300% carbon tax hike, all the way up to 61 cents a litre. Why not let Canadians choose a common sense conservative government that will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime now?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The opposition has spent any time listening to Canadians over the summer, he would have heard that they need solutions. They need answers to the challenges they're facing. That's not what he's offering. Indeed, he doesn't care about Canadians. He just cares about himself and his own political interests. We're going to keep focused on doing the things that he refuses to do, whether it's him voting against dental care, whether it's him voting against child care, whether it's him voting against a national school food program. We're going to still deliver the things that matter to Canadians, like food in kids' bellies, childcare spaces, and supports for seniors to go to the dentist, many of them first time in years.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Children are hungrier than ever after 9 years of the NDP Liberals. In fact, 25% of them are not getting enough food, and we now know why. A carbon tax fraud has been perpetrated by this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, who kept secret Environment Canada documents that showed that the carbon tax was blowing a $25 billion hole in our economy. Our economy per capita is smaller today than it was 10 years ago, during which time the American economy has grown by 19%. Instead of a reckless plan to hike the tax to 61 cents a litre, why not allow Canadians to vote to axe the tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Here's a news flash for the Conservative leader. Climate change costs money, and what would cost the most money to Canadians at all is his do-nothing climate plan. News flash: when the Toronto subway gets flooded, it costs money. News flash: when forest fires hit communities across this country, it costs Canadians money to rebuild. When you have droughts that hit farmers and agriculturists across this country, it costs money. What doesn't cost money is putting money in 8 out of 10 of the money of Canadians' pockets with the Canada Carbon Rebate to support their families and fight climate change.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister just proved my point. His tax doesn't stop floods, fires, or droughts. All it does is create more poverty. This also from a high-flying, high-taxing, high-carbon hypocrite who flew 92,000 kilometers in a fuel-guzzling, tax-funded private jet while he taxes single moms and seniors for heating their homes. Now, carbon tax Carney wants him to put the tax back on home heating oil. Will he reject carbon tax Carney and instead allow Canadians to choose to axe the tax?
Just want to remind all members, and to do so early, to be very mindful of their language that they use in referring to other members in this House. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader doesn't believe in climate change, and that's why he has a do-nothing plan to fight climate change. It would cost Canadians money and challenge the future we're building for our kids. Our plan, with the Canada Carbon Rebate, puts more dollars in 8 out of 10 Canadians' pockets right across the country, supports the middle class and people working hard to join it, while delivering the kinds of investments that are going to grow our economy and reduce emissions at the same time. This is a responsible climate plan that fights climate change and supports Canadians. He wants to do nothing. He wants to hurt Canadians.
Okay, so round one was not great, but round two certainly is. They start hammering Freeland. I don't want to do too much commentary on here because these times are tough. I just want to show you what happened in Canadian federal politics. Canadian Looney, like, subscribe, watch Freeland. She gets cut up in this piece. Let's take a peek.
The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
The Prime Minister gave the Finance Minister a real vote of confidence last week as he outsourced the job that she was supposed to have been doing for 4 years and gave it to a man who's not even in the Liberal caucus. First, the Prime Minister tried to fire her in the newspaper, and now she's being shoved aside for carbon tax Carney, a man focused on his own profits and his own corporate interests, who was brought in to serve as the de facto Finance Minister. She's lost her job responsibilities. She's lost her credibility. How long will the Phantom Finance Minister endure this humiliation?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I am not going anywhere. Focus on personal mudslinging and attacks rather than to actually talk about the economy. They don't want to talk about inflation because it's been down in the target range for 7 months in a row. They don't want to talk about interest rates down 3 times in a row. All they can do is insult people.
The Honourable Member from Thornhill.
Who's going to tell her? She just got a demotion, and he hired a guy that's not even elected to do her job. Does anyone believe that carbon tax Carney is going to tell the Prime Minister how to help a family afford groceries as the loudest cheerleader for carbon taxes ever? If the Finance Minister isn't completely humiliated by now, can she explain why Canadians should trust a man who is the #1 supporter of higher taxes to do her job?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we are seeing more clearly than ever that the only thing the Conservatives know how to do is to level personal attacks and personal denigration. They do not care about Canadians, and now they're scared about the facts of our economy. So let me tell you some facts. Inflation in the target range for 7 months in a row. Interest rates down 3 times in a row, and the IMF says we'll have the strongest economic growth in the G7.
The Honourable Member from Calgary, Nose Hill.
So the alien baby mother, Karina Gould, is back in the House, and she has something to say. They're still going really hard at Chrystia Freeland, which, you know, whatever. That's the way it goes in politics, I guess. Canadians, I just want you to see what's happening in our House of Commons. Let's look. Take a closer look. Pay attention to this stuff. It's very obvious.
Summer, after he argued that Atlantic Canadian home heating oil should be carbon taxed, carbon tax-loving Mark Carney spent a lovely summer of whimsy having champers at the Royal Box at Wimbledon and rubbing shoulders at a swish cocktail party with a wealthy CEO who yesterday coincidentally got millions of dollars of tax dollars. This is not someone who's in touch with the struggle of average Canadians, but neither is the Prime Minister. Did he push aside his now phantom female cabinet minister because carbon tax tax-loving Mark Carney could get him into fancier parties than she can.
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House.
Mr. Speaker, look, I first want to begin by saying it's great to be back in this place. I really did miss most people on this side. I can't say that I missed all of you that much, but I did miss you a little bit. But what I do want to say is that it's just typical from the Conservatives that when they have an eminent Canadian, someone who has given so much to this country, who doesn't agree with their economic vision or their vision at all in Canada, they attack them. Mr. Speaker, we need to be better than this. We need to support Canadians and be grateful when they put forward for public service. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Calgary, Nose Hill.
They're not even letting her answer the question anymore. At a time when so many people are struggling to make ends meet and pleading for someone to fix the budget, I'm struggling to find a reason why the Prime Minister would put an out-of-touch elitist, active archpriest of carbon price profiteering who has massive conflicts of interest in charge of the federal budget while shunting aside his female cabinet minister. What a feminist. Why does the now Phantom Finance Minister have to get approval for Canada's fall economic statement from carbon tax, conflict of interest, Mark Carney?
Yeah!
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I'm actually really glad to welcome back to the QP roster the member for Calgary Nose Hill. We haven't heard her raising her voice for a while. Mr. Speaker, I'm not going anywhere, but I am not surprised to see the Conservatives continue cartoonish personal attacks. And that is because they are afraid to reveal to Canadians their plan for austerity and cuts, because they know that's not what Canadians want.
The Honourable Member from Peterborough.
Michelle Ferrari is an MP from Peterborough, Ontario. Who does not like this lady? She is sharp. Let's take a look at how sharp she is.
Or Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, we have two sources saying the view of some senior officials within the PMO, including Chief of Staff Katie Telford, that the Phantom Finance Minister has been ineffective in selling the government's economic policies. So, it's curious because we have a fake feminist Prime Minister who says he's all for women. Taxes are up, costs are up, the economy's in the toilet, and this carbon tax, Mark Carney, is now going to quadruple the carbon tax on all home heating across Canada. Yeah. So why is this Phantom Finance Minister okay with being publicly humiliated by this fake feminist Prime Minister?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the only people being humiliated today are Conservative MPs who have to listen to their colleagues wallow in the mud of personal character assassination. But what we are focused on is representing and working for Canadians. That's why, Mr. Speaker, the real news today is 30-year mortgage amortizations for all first-time home buyers. That's the real news, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member from Peterborough, Kawartha.
Mr. Speaker, it is not Conservatives saying that. It's the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, for the record. And so I guess the question is before this Phantom Finance Minister. She simply has two choices. Is she going to join the graveyard of Liberal female ministers under this fake feminist Prime Minister? Or, like Jody Wilson-Raybould, Jane Philpott, or will she continue to be publicly humiliated?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, what we are seeing today is the Conservatives running away from the reality about the Canadian economy. They are running away from the fact that inflation is in the Bank of Canada's target range for 7 months in a row. They are running away from interest rates down 3 times in a row, the first time in the G7, and wages outpacing inflation for 18 months. The only thing the Conservatives know how to do is traffic in cheap insults. Canadians are a lot better than that.
Who is harder to watch in your mind? Like McKinnon, Steve McKinnon, or Karina Gould? They're both pretty awful. They're frustrating to watch. Anyhow, we've got to proceed forward. We've got a couple of more rounds. The next one is Jasraj Hallan, who I'm a fan of watching. He's well-spoken from Alberta. He's not a cowboy, but he's trying to be a cowboy. You know what I mean? Like, he's Canadian.
Calgary, Forest Lawn.
After 9 years of this Liberal NDP government, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, time's up. When the Prime Minister promised to quadruple the carbon tax scam, the leader of the NDP said, yes, sir, anything for his $2.2 million pension. And now, the Canadian Truckers Alliance released a damning report. The carbon tax scam adds more than $4 billion cost to farmers, families, and food. Why don't they just call a carbon tax election now and let Canadians decide whether to quadruple or axe the tax for good?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Climate Change.
Newsflash, Mr. Speaker. We had a carbon tax election in 2021, and the Conservative Party had a platform where they said they would put in place carbon pricing in this country. Maybe he just has to go and look back at their own platform, Mr. Speaker. Again this morning, the Parliamentary Budget Officer was in committee saying that 8 out of 10 Canadian families where carbon pricing applies get more money than what they pay in pricing, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, the Conservative Party of Canada continues to spew lies and disinformation on this issue.
The Honourable Member from Calgary, Forest Lawn.
The PBO proved that that orange jumpsuit, handcuff-wearing minister is lying when he said that more Canadians pay into this.
I know it's the first day back for members. We've all spent this time with our ridings. I'm going to ask the Honourable Member if he could rephrase this question because he knows that you can't. I'm going to ask him to. I am going to ask the Honourable Member to rephrase his question, to not use language which is normally considered unparliamentary. The Honourable Member from Calgary, Forest Lawn, from the top.
What this orange jumpsuit wearing, handcuff loving minister doesn't understand is that the PBO proved Canadians pay more into this scam than what they get back. And it's done nothing to stop a single forest fire or flood. It's a scam and nothing else. And the leader of the NDP continues to prop this carbon tax scam up so he can get his $2.2 million pension. That's why he voted in favor of it 24 times. Call a carbon tax election now so Canadians can axe the tax and kick this carbon tax costly coalition to the curb.
It's really important for all members to choose their language and use their words judiciously in a way that is respectful to the House. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, that kind of language from the member opposite is totally inappropriate. And quite frankly, Canadians deserve better. But it's what we've come to expect from the Conservative leader and his caucus, who would prefer.
Outside the House, right?
Colleagues, I could not hear the Honourable Minister give her response. It's difficult for me to hear that, so that I can make sure that the language is correct. The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House, please, from the top.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the language from the member opposite was completely inappropriate, and quite frankly, Canadians deserve better. But unfortunately, that's what we've come to expect from the Conservative members and their leader. And the reason why they're focusing on the price on pollution is because they want to distract Canadians from the real agenda, where they cut pensions for seniors, they cut childcare for families, they cut and defund the CBC at a time of increased disinformation. Mr. Speaker, they want to hide their real agenda from Canadians because they know that they won't like it. But Mr. Speaker, they need to be under that scrutiny and they need to be honest with Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Again, I'm going to ask members on all sides to please make sure that they only address the House when they have recognized.
Old Greg Fergus is pretty full of it, eh? Like, can you not be so fed up with this guy already? Today is day one. He shuts it down like this all the time. In this next round, we get introduced to the newest member of Parliament, who won a big riding, overtook a Liberal riding, which was a big feat. And then in the next round, we'll see if they can pick Elizabeth May up off the ground. In the meantime, we do have Larry Brock. There's some fun things. Arif Irani is in here. Like, he's, for some reason, entertaining because he's laughable. Let's continue. Let's go.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years, the NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, time's up. Just last week, we heard 1 million people in Ontario are accessing food banks. Meanwhile, the NDP leader supports the Prime Minister, keeps him in power, and supports his crushing carbon tax increases. I just finished a successful by-election campaign. Why will the NDP Liberals not let Canadians decide about the carbon tax and call a carbon tax election now?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to welcome my new colleague to this place. It's important, of course, to always be open and transparent with Canadians, and what we see is someone else who knows how to repeat three-word slogans as opposed to be able to deliver for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, what the members opposite are doing are trying to evade what they actually plan to deliver for Canadians. So I hope that the member opposite can be more honest and transparent with Canadians moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That's a good hope.
The Honourable Member from Brantford, Brent.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes are up, costs are up, crime is up, and now time is up. Canadians are feeling more unsafe than ever. Violent crime up 50%, sex assaults up 75%, car theft 46%, and shockingly violent gun crime over 100%. Will the Liberals finally join Conservatives in protecting Canadians and demanding jail, not bail, for repeat violent offenders?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General for Canada.
Mr. Speaker, my fundamental job is to keep Canadians safe. Here's what we've been doing in the last 12 months. We've increased...
Colleagues, I would appreciate being able to hear the Honourable Member's response. The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General for Canada, from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, my fundamental job is to keep Canadians safe. Here's what I've been doing the last 12 months. I proposed new offences for money laundering. The Conservatives voted against. I've increased the penalties for violent carjackings. The Conservatives voted against. I and my colleague, the Minister of Public Safety, have put $160 million to aid the CBSA and law enforcement in detecting and stopping car thefts. Car thefts are down 17% over the last 6 months compared to last year. There's still more work to do. We're going to continue to do that work. While the Conservatives shout slogans, we are going to keep Canadians safe.
The honourable member from Brantford Brant.
Simple fact is criminals have nothing to fear under the NDP Liberal legislation. Bill C-48 has done nothing to stop the crime in our communities. Instead of listening to premiers and law enforcement who have called for bail reform, the Justice Minister pretends that C-48 is a success. Mr. Speaker, it's an abject failure. When will the minister stop protecting criminals, start standing up for victims by reversing their catch and release policies?
The Honourable Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Mr. Speaker, I spent the summer listening to victims, and what they talk to me about is intelligent policies and approaches to crime. What we did is pass in this chamber, thankfully with the unanimous support, bail reform. The job is now on the provinces to ensure that that bail reform bears fruit. What am I talking about, Mr. Speaker? The people that decide bail decisions are justices of the peace and primarily provincial court judges appointed at the provincial level. The people that appeal bail decisions, such as my colleague in his former capacity, are provincial crown attorneys who are under the direction of provincial premiers and provincial attorneys general. When there's not enough jail space to keep people in jail who don't deserve bail, that's a provincial responsibility.
All right, gang, we're into the late rounds here. This is the part at the very end, like you can flip towards the end and see if they can pick Elizabeth May up off the floor to try to deliver her question, I guess. Like, oh, it's ridiculous. And the rest is kind of funny. Labouthier is the Fisheries minister, and she seems like a disaster. Like, Clifford Small would fit into that position very well. We'll see what happens in the next election. My name's Aaron. This is pretty much a recap of what happened today in question period. And that's what we'll be doing. We'll try to do more of those. That's it. We might even give this show a name, which would be like the question period recap or something like that. Anyhow, like, subscribe, share, get notified, all those fun things. We do live shows on YouTube all the time, so come and check one of those out. We're probably going to be doing a podcast here starting very soon. It might be this episode. Who knows? Again, thank you all so much for watching. And my name's Aaron. This is Canadian Looney. Like, subscribe, share, get notified, comment, please. I love the comments. All those fun things. We'll catch you in the next video. There's going to be a lot of politics coming up. Things in Canada are loony. That's for certain. Catch you next video. Thanks for watching this one. Have a good night.
The honourable member from Coast of Bay Central, Notre Dame.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of the NDP Liberals, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, time's up. And now foreign access to Northern Cod is up. With the backing of the 6 Liberal Newfoundland and Labrador MPs, this government broke the promise to allocate the first 115,000 tonnes of Northern Cod to the inshore harvesters, and they caved to NAFO pressure to allow foreign countries back in with 5% of the Northern Cod quota. So this minister, Mr. Speaker, does she work for foreign nations or does she work for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is aware of the cultural, economic, and historic importance of cod for the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. That's why, after 30 years of closure, I announced new modern fishing, which will lead to significant windfall for Newfoundland and Labrador, all while leading to well-paying jobs. Our government is committed towards sustainable, prosperous fishing that will support the generations of today and tomorrow, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from New Brunswick Southwest.
Mr. Speaker, after 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes up, costs up, crimes up, and time's up for this atrocious Liberal Fisheries Minister. She has failed to protect one of Atlantic Canada's most important industry, the lobster fishery. In my riding, there are no DFO enforcement officers along the Canada-U.S. border. Poachers from Maine are illegally fishing lobsters in our waters. They are stealing Canada's natural resources. 60 New Brunswick fishing boats held a peaceful protest Saturday, calling on the minister to enforce the law and protect Canadian sovereignty. Will she do her job, or will the Prime Minister fire her?
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, our DFO officers do a very difficult job. They do it every day. But the opposition keeps saying that there's no enforcement on our waters. Well, that is completely false. And moreover, Mr. Speaker, it's irresponsible. This work is ongoing.
The honourable member from New Brunswick Southwest had the opportunity to ask his question. I'm going to ask him to please hold his comments and let the minister respond to his question. And I'm certain he has an opportunity to ask questions again on the same issue. Then I have
the Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans, and with 12 seconds remaining. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If he can shout, I can shout. We are deploying the necessary additional resources in order to protect our oceans and our resources, Mr. Speaker.
the honourable member from South Shore, St. Margaret's.
After 9 years of NDP Liberals, taxes, costs, and crime are up, and fisheries officers are refusing to patrol the Maritimes because these Liberals will not let them enforce the law. Poachers are attacking with shotguns and knives. Meanwhile, Liberal Fisheries Minister number 6 lives in denial, refusing to listen to the union. 20,000 pounds of lobster a day are poached through the Saulnieville Wharf alone. Americans are fishing in Canadian waters. Will the Prime Minister listen to fishermen for a change, call an election so Conservatives can fix the fishery?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Fisheries and Oceans. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I encourage my colleagues to listen to the English interpretation of what I'm about to say in French, Mr. Speaker. What's being suggested is totally false. DFO enforcement agents are doing their job, Mr. Speaker. And on this side of the House, we're not putting on a show. We're working because this is an important matter. This pertains to safety, the safety of our waters and on our waters, and what he's suggesting is totally irresponsible. We will continue to do the necessary work in the right way. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Again, I'll ask members who ask questions to please ask their question and then listen to the response and then take up the question again when their turn has been offered. The honourable member from Richmond Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This summer, I was pleased to join the Minister of Health to sign 2 new healthcare agreements with British Columbia. These agreements will enhance wages for personal support workers and improve accessibility and affordability to medication across BC. Canadians believe in our healthcare system, and we must continue to build up a healthcare system for all generations. Could the Minister of Health please share with us how these agreements will support healthcare in BC?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for Richmond Centre for his advocacy in health and to make sure that we have the greatest health system in the world. And, you know, we're seeing that unfold in British Columbia with an agreement that's going to make sure that healthcare assistants, what some call personal support workers, are getting a fair wage, making sure that we work in partnership, that the people who keep our hospitals and our long-term care facilities and assisted care facilities going, as well as an essential agreement on pharmacare, making sure that every person in British Columbia has access to the contraceptives they need, has access to the diabetes medication they need, and yes, to menopause hormone treatment, Mr. Speaker. These are huge things for our health system.
The honourable member from Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals' failure to fund services through Jordan's Principle is endangering First Nations youth. In fact, in Winnipeg, Spirit Horse Action Therapy is owed almost $400,000. And the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society says this government's neglect is putting kids at risk. When will the Liberals respect their legal obligations to Jordan's Principle and ensure the health and safety of First Nations youth?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister for...
Mr. Speaker, I'm so proud to be part of a government that puts Indigenous children first. First Nations children are getting the services they need after a decade of neglect with the previous Conservative government ignoring their needs, leading to historic lawsuits and, of course, the compensation required to make up for such a terrible omission. And we are making it right, Mr. Speaker. We're ensuring that no First Nations child goes without the care they deserve.
It's question period. The Honourable Member from Saanich, Gulf Islands.
Thank you. I have a question for the Environment Minister. Northvolt is setting up on the contaminated lands of a previous place. There are jurisdictional impacts. Thousands of people signed a petition for a federal assessment. The mayors of Saint-Basile and McMasterville are wondering what the repercussions of this Northvolt plant will be. Will the minister use his powers to order an environmental impact assessment to study the impact of the Northvolt plant in Quebec? The Honourable Environment and Climate Change Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the member for Saanich Gulf Islands for her question. The Canada Impact Assessment Agency received a request for an impact assessment, so the impact assessment study is underway. The agency will make its recommendations in the upcoming weeks. The leader of the Green Party and I and many others in Canada are confused, though, about the NDP's position on carbon pricing. I did some door-to-door in La Salle et Marverdun over the weekend, and so many people told me that they don't understand the NDP's new stance because it would be harmful to the whole country.
Oh, hello. Do you have a warrant to be here?
It's time for a change in this country, my friends, a real change.
Squiggle and squirm as you might, it is really hard to put lipstick on a pig.
When I'm Prime Minister, I will keep my promises.
WTF.
I know this place is where I am. No other place is better.
The one we call Canadian.
Gentlemen, beam me aboard.
You know